Oh, shalom, my friends. Shalom, my enemies. This is your old pal, Rabbi Sol Solomon, founder and spiritual leader of Temple Sons of Bitches in Great Neck, New York. And a lot of people say that I am in many ways defective. But we have with us a defector, an actual ballerina who danced with a Bolshoi ballet in Russia and then thought, I don't think I want to be in Russia anymore. So she and her husband got out. They came to New York. They danced all over the place. They danced on Broadway. She did in On Your Toes. And since then, she's done more dance, a lot of choreography. She's taught dancing. She actually opened a dancing school. Let me give some exactitude here. She founded also a dance foundation and a dance competition. She has taught for the Boston Ballet and the Joffrey Ballet, among others. And in 2018, the Andrew Carnegie Foundation recognized Valentina Kozlova as the great immigrant, great American. And she has a book coming out, of course, because you're going to want to hear about her life. Valentina Kozlova! Shalom to you. Welcome.
Shalom, shalom.
I was going to say it in Russian, but I forgot. I know Das Vidanya is bye-bye. How do you say hello?
Yeah, you say добрый вечер.
Oh, добрый вечер for good night. Or in the morning, добрый день. So this is more airing in the morning. So добрый день to you, or добрый утро.
Добрый день, добрый вечер, доброе утро, if it's a morning.
Yeah, it's been so long, let me tell you. But glad to have you. Glad that you are here as an American. So let's first of all, are you choreographing anything? Are you directing anything? Are you teaching? Or where are you in your career before we get to the book and your life story?
I am teaching, I'm coaching, I'm doing in a couple of weeks international ballet competition in New York. And in April, I will be dancing a little bit. Not on point at this point in my life, not on point, but still dancing. So I'm rehearsing. You know, you have to keep yourself in shape.
Believe me, if you saw me dance, you would say I was pointless. You know, everything I do is basically pointless. Watch this.
There's nothing. So there's nothing like pointless. I think that if you make an effort to a certain degree, you'll find your niche.
Now, were you dancing? I thought you said somewhere since the age of 3.
I was getting on stage and doing poetry and all of that. So basically, I was a performer, I guess, in my soul. And six, I started already more or less professional.
And at that point, because it's funny, I just watched a documentary about Judith Polgar, the chess lady, and like her parents were like mono-focused on her becoming a chess brilliant genius, which she was, or is. But were your parents like this, or you kind of guided the way and they went, yes, yes, good?
Not at all. My parents were not like that. It's just, after school program that Russian children were always going to somewhere to do it. And it was question, will I do gymnastics or what do I want to do? And I said, well, let's try dance. That's how it was. And then after that, nobody pushed me. It was all on my own. I wanted to change my life.
And did you realize you were not just capable, but at what point did you realize you were good?
Yeah, well, if I was taken into Bolshoi school, because it was very difficult, like 3 rounds, you go through, up to 3,000 kids applied. Only 30 were taken, 15 boys and 15 girls. So that says something. So once you're taking, you know that you almost say that like it's the end of your childhood because you started to be professional. But I was happy because that was my life. So it's not like I'm missing my childhood and playing with friends. I mean, I just was happy that I had exactly what I wanted to have.
So when you're doing all these classes, aside from going, I assume you still had to go to regular school for a few hours, but your life was focused around dance when you were 10, 11, 12, 15 years old and loved it. What did it instill discipline in you? What was the life like, especially in Russia in the 1970s?
Life was safe for children. You can walk alone on the streets of Moscow, cross big highway, and if you, for example, if you see some adult, so then you ask for help, and they cross over, that you take bus or subway or whatsoever. And I didn't have to go to an academic school because we had a special program developed by Soviet government at the time. So it was all in the same building. When we had, besides all regular academic programs, we had, of course, ballet lessons, character, folklore, anything regarding dance. On top of that, art, music playing, music study, and also philosophy, theater, starting from Greek theater to nowadays. I mean, anything and everything that we had also breathing exercises, like trained like opera singers, and also gymnastics. So it was all in one building. So we'll start, say, when I was 8, 9. It was from 9 in the morning until 6, and then later on from 9 to 9.
Oy, wow. Wow, you got 3 carrots for dinner because that's all they had in the supermarkets. But I'm kidding, but we had an idea of what Russia was like in the 60s and 70s. Was it that, first of all, I'm always curious, did they tell you that Americans were horrible and evil and we were a terrible, terrible country that, what did they tell you about Americans and what did you actually believe growing up about us?
Well, what I believed, they told us that the country, that Soviet Union was the best country in the world, and we believed because we didn't know anything different. And then when you started to be a little bit older, and at the age of 13, I had the chance to go to France, Monaco, Italy, Spain, dancing. And that's when that you see the other side of the planet. And so as young as you are at 13, still brain is young, that you realize, wait a minute, there's something else behind the scenes. And yeah, that's basically it. And television and all press was very restricted. So we've seen what we had to see it and nothing more. So obviously,
Was
yeah.
there deprivation? Was there, like when you would go into a market to buy food, we would have this image of there'd be 1 can of beans on a shelf, and that was it. I mean, was it like that, or did we get an exaggeration? It was.
No, no, you're right. Yeah, you stay in the long lines to get, I don't know, eggs, whatever that you need to get, and you pay the ticket. By the time you get with your ticket, they say, oh, we don't have right now.
Wow. So you go through all this, you become a ballerina with a Bolshoi, right? And so you get to travel the world, which is a thing that all these other people in Russia can't do. But you had a pretty privileged life in the Soviet Union. Why? I mean, by the way, we should mention you are not, unlike me, you are not a Jewess. You're actually you're a non-Jewish person. So we always figure the defectors, a lot of them were Jewish because they were oppressed. And why did you and your husband go?
Well, let me put this, that, for example, we had everything in our profession, great coaches, great culture. You cannot take this from Russia, whether it's Soviet Russia or Russia. And but it was designed by the government repertoire, for example. So you only can dance whatever is in this theater. To go by yourself abroad, that was not allowed. You only go with the group and you dance. While being in Russia, that I've seen foreign companies coming, dance companies, and it was absolutely like a revolution, something that I never seen before, and desire to learn all of this and to see was, I guess, a very mysteriously greater than just staying and be comfortable. That's true. I had a privileged life, but as an artist, that you want to go forward, and that was the huge desire. Besides, I travel a lot before, so I've seen life in a different countries, which seems to me sort of you're responsible for your own life. It's like free. You can do whatever you want, really.
And so and the interesting thing is, you met your husband on the trip. You met in New York, right? And then you decided that time you were thinking about it, but you waited until the next trip to actually defect, right? Is that the deal?
No, I met
Oh,
my husband when I graduated, and it was organized by Sol Europe to come to the United States, and it was part of graduation class of Bolshoi Ballet Academy and some artists from Bolshoi Ballet, and that's how we met. And then I came back and I started to work in Bolshoi, and eventually we got married. And then he introduced me to this idea. I didn't know that people can defect, because my head was only like in a culture and dance and all of that.
right.
And so the realization is to be able to even experience that, or go for this huge step. You have to be a real someone. So we worked very hard to be on top, and also we were young in age. So that seems like it's a possibilities to make in the West. And and then it was like in 1978. It was we tried, but it was impossible to do it. So we came back, but 2 years after that, in 79, there was a possibility to do it.
And what what you have to have in place, considering all that you were leaving behind, in order to just land in New York, be a couple, not be Russian anymore, be disavowed by your old country, and start and have somewhere to live and to eat and etc. I mean, did you just leap into a New York ballet company? How did you manage?
We decided not to join any company, because in reality, as much as we wanted to work with other choreographers and learn so many pieces, that we didn't know dance world, and especially classical world in reality. And it was like a strange realization that in ballet, in the classics, it wasn't up to Bolshoi, for example, but in anything else, it was very magnetic, like you really wanted to try. So for about a year and a half, we had guest engagements, a lot, many, and then eventually settled in Australia for a couple of years, but like permanent guest artists. So we have like certain performances, certain weeks in Australia, and then travel some other places, come back to Australia. So it was like that. And of course, as you know, that was on your toes, and eventually joined New York City Ballet as a principals, and life continues, and it was extremely fulfilled and very exciting. So.
So, what was your favorite role when you were at the height of your powers as a dancer? Did you have one favorite like part or one favorite evening of a particular ballet?
Not really. I dreamed to my first full-length ballet as a lead, as a principal dancer, should be Swan Lake. It was. Then I wanted so then I will say it's very close to me, because that's what I wanted. It's actually happened. And then every time I thought about something, another ballet, it happened. It's just like whatever was on my head. It's like a magician. It happened. My last performance with Bolshoi in Moscow was Lavrovsky Romeo and Juliet, and Leonid Lavrovsky, choreographer. He created this with Sergei Prokofiev. That was his like first version of Romeo, and it was the last performance in the Bolshoi, and my first performance and the last in Bolshoi.
Whoa! Wow! Did you work with Balanchine at one point?
Yeah, a little bit, because he at that point he already was not that great, not well.
But did you learn anything from him, or what was he like?
Uh, we connected. I mean, of course, I saw him before, but we connected during On Your Toes, And of course, director of Anitos was legendary George Abbott.
Right. Yeah.
And George Abbott wanted certain way. He worked almost like Stanislavski. You cannot change anything. That you turn, you say, you look. And in ballet world, there's many interpretations that which I'm accustomed. So today, this performance I do slightly like that. Next day, a little change, not changing scenario, but little change, because you sort of, you cannot be like exactly dancing like that. For me, it doesn't last that long. And Balanchine was sort of on the same side as me. There was no argument to begin with. No argument, period. I just was doing what I was asked by George Balanchine, by George Abbott.
Abbott, yeah.
Yes, and George Balanchine said to me, "Oh, you remind me of someone from Imperial time, Russian Imperial time." And I said, "Who?" and he said, "No one particular, just the type." And well, I was flattered because I don't come from Russian Imperial time. I come from Soviet time. And so it was interesting. And he said that, you know how Russian Imperial ballerinas, they were capricious, but they were not like hysterically like, anybody else. It's still aristocracy in a way. So that's how he sort of led me into this way, in a sense of dancing, that not much corrections or anything. I think he was just accepting what I was doing.
Well, that's wonderful. I mean, it is interesting though how you're saying that George Abbott would be such a taskmaster of demanding I should do everything exactly the same way, and people like me would figure, well, that's exactly how the Russians would have made you do it. And it's surprising to me that the Russian choreographers would be like, no, there's several things you can change, you can move. So it's the wrong idea, because we think of Russia, no offense, but of the Soviet Union, like you do it like this, or you go to a gulag. So it's kind of nice that it wasn't like that for you, even in your training or the Bolshoi.
No. I mean, in the school that we kind of had to do what teachers tell you, but when you come to the company and you start to work, especially as a principal, you have your own coach, and they say like, so that's the step, that's how you do it. No, it doesn't look really good for you, so a little bit turn shoulder this way or that way. So they work individually for you, what fits you, without changing choreography, which is like very interesting, because like my last coach was very famous, Raisa Suchkova. She pulled out of me things that I didn't know existed in me. So she pulled my soul to be able to produce, for example, Juliet in the Romeo and Juliet performance and some other performances. So they look more, after you've got technique and all the structure, they look with your personality to see what you can do in this role, rather than following somebody else who was doing this role. So that's
Now, speaking of other choreographers, you must have worked with Jerome Robbins.
I did.
Any Jerry Robbins stories? Because he could be an interesting fella.
Yes, that was the one story. So I did opening night for myself, first performance with New York City Ballet when we started. And Jerry Robbins decided it should be his performance, his ballet, 4 seasons. And he decided to redo on me variations which existed. And so he was choreographing. And it was a time that I felt that he got stuck, which is normal for a choreographer. And so he was walking like one rehearsal, another rehearsal, not being satisfied. And I was getting cold, and I thought, what's the matter with him? But I didn't say it. And then one rehearsal, he comes and he says, no, this is wrong. And tiny bit showed me dissatisfaction. And I looked at him, and that's a true story. I said, who do you think you are? And I walked out of the room.
Whoa.
He treated me after that like a with glove. Everything was great.
So, yeah, sometimes the way to deal with a bully is to just, wow. Good for you. Good for you. Now, was it hard for you, or because you have to choreograph lots of young ballerinas and dancers and things like that, to go from the classical ballet to doing things that are in the realm more of not even Martha Graham, but say Bill T. Jones or modern-ish, real modern stuff, Mark Morris or whoever?
For me, myself, you're asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would
To either do or to teach, yeah.
Teaching, no, not modern. I didn't teach, but I danced, and it was challenging because I work with Elvin I work with Glenn Tetley, who's completely away from classical ballet, right? And I found it's fascinating because this is exactly why I came here, like to learn. It's totally different body movement, but if you put your brain into it, if you realize that I really want to learn that, then it basically works out.
Now, getting back to the life story thing. So you're traveling, you're in Australia, you're going all over the place, you're getting settled in New York, but you did go back to Russia at
Mm,
least one time in 1991. So it's
correct.
been about, whatever, 15, 20 years since you left. What was that like?
Chaotic life in Russia at the time. It was during Yeltsin. It was like chaos. I don't think that they knew exactly what they were doing. I was very scared to cross the border when you arrive in Moscow. It was just like very uncomfortable. The reason, as much as it looked very tempting to go back to Russia, dance some Balanchine pieces. It was a small group, and we danced in Kremlin with 6,000 seats, totally full. All performances, six performances were sold out. Stage is huge. This is where previously I danced with Bolshoi. And so that was really tempting, but it was a fear for me because I defected.
Yeah.
Uh, the reason I actually made up my mind because I knew NBC television will be following me every step of the way.
That
So
helps.
I,
Yep.
I- yeah, I had a chauffeur, and then I had basically bodyguards with the cameras, so they filmed everything. But it was difficult. It's difficult, exciting, but you really had to concentrate because people from Bolshoi and other theaters came to see. So let's see what happened, for example, to her. Did she go like down, like in her level? And doing first performance, showing a different style of dance in front of people who, audience who wanted to see you and audience who came to criticize.
Yeah. Hey.
Listen. And I didn't fail. It was great. It was it was great, and then of course it was televised and showed in the U.S. So memories were wonderful, but Russia itself was very destabilized, and it was like you didn't know. I mean, what is good, what is not good. I chose to speak with Russians who were like in a hotel or so in English because then they answer you nicely. If you spoke Russian, they will not answer you nicely.
Oh my God, that's wow. Have you been back since 91?
Yeah, many times.
Oh, many times. So everything's pretty, I mean, you can go, there's no hard feelings on their side or anything like that.
No, no. Actually, at some point, I guess it was 2018 that Russians gave me like an evening in a theater for actors where they celebrated my life.
Wow. That's the one thing I forgot to ask about the defection thing. What your parents were probably still alive
My
when
mother,
your
my
mother was.
mother. Yeah.
I mean, at what point was there a point where you thought you never talk to her, or even or see her again, let alone talk to her, or was for phone calls okay? I mean, how did that all work out?
Phone calls, yeah, phone calls were okay. First, it was, I think, arranged possibly by FBI, whatsoever that I could call, and but quite often they were interrupted. Um, there wasn't much conversation. That my mother was crying, and I was trying to like to explain, and it was like for quite some time. But then after Perestroika, she was able to come to the US, and then I took her to France, to Paris, and some other places. And she went with me to Saratoga and North Carolina, Outer Banks, and she's seen me dance, of course, here, and then she's seen me dance in Russia coming. So that was really wonderful.
Yeah.
But when you defect, yeah, that is true that you kind of have to choose. Do you want to follow your dream as an artist, or you stay where you were born and raised and have life, everything is protected, but like I say, in a golden box.
And yeah, you stay in the box, you're fine. If you try and peep your eyeballs out of the box, slam. So that's. Speaking of which, your thoughts about the current leader of Russia?
I try to, I thought that he did, when he took over, a lot for Russians, a lot with the economy and opening everything that in Russia. Uh, what's happening in the current last few years, uh, I think we all don't understand and don't want even to get into any interpretations, because we don't know what's going up there. We have no idea what's going in the world. Look, the whole entire world is now like God insane. I mean, you take every country. France was under terrible situation with whatever yellow jackets or whatsoever, and one country after another and another, and of course, current situation is still very unstable everywhere in general.
Sure. Yeah. So let me, by the way, I need to remind people we're talking with Valentina Kozlova, and she's telling some of her life story here, but you can read all of her life story in an imminent book that is being published this month in March. It's Behind the Curtain: The Truth, the Sacrifice, and the Price of Freedom. And you can read it on Amazon and all the different places that books are sold. So what made you realize it was time to put your story on paper or digital paper?
I was asked long ago to write a book, and I thought it was just, I didn't feel comfortable writing my book for two reasons: because I still continue to dance. You sort of write book a little bit older when, because more material, and also process what actually happened in my life, why I did, and all of that you have to process in your head. I wrote book right before pandemic, and I couldn't publish because of the pandemic. And then I put on the shelf, and I even forgot about. And only like few months ago that I thought, well, maybe I should go back, because people constantly saying you should write a book. And I read, I made few corrections. I didn't add what happened after pandemic, because life goes on. It's always something is happening. And so I thought, okay, I'll leave as is with some corrections. And it was very hard, because when you write book, you don't write about just what happened, events. You write what's happening inside of your heart and your soul. So in other words, you give your private thoughts and your private life to the audience. And everybody sees me, okay, successful career, glamour here and that, life is wonderful. I mean, does it really exist? We all work very hard, and we have ups and downs. But if you have such a step like what I did, there was a trauma. There was a psychological trauma, because you live in something that you work so hard to become who you became, and then you completely switching to another life, another planet, another universe, I would say, and almost starting from the beginning, except I had the name, so that helped. So it's a more about my thoughts, and I must say that I do appreciate, and I'm very thankful what I've got in Russia, because that was a fantastic culture and all of that. Without this, I wouldn't be where I am now. But the United States and the West gave me freedom to experiment, and to have artistic freedom as well, as much as freedom. So that's like, it's like two different levels. And the award that you mentioned before, I got Great Immigrant and Great American. That's exactly what I think I represent, because I don't say, oh, everything was bad in Soviet Union. No, it wasn't. I'm actually happy what I've got. But then I went further to, to present what I have, and I learned a lot. I learned, one of my first visits were to go not only to Broadway to see different shows. I met Yul Brynner. It was just like so fantastic. And
Wait. Did you get to dance? Did you do the King and I? Shall we dance? No, they didn't do a little bit. No,
no.
no.
But when I played on your toes, I stayed in his dressing room, one of the cities. They said you'll stay in Yul and sweet. And then of course I hit every single like famous jazz club, because that was interesting, like jazz music.
Yeah.
It was, for me, it was interesting to hear how musicians staying in a small room and playing, and jazz, it's like very like not experimental, but they're playing like uh, without any script, really.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it is on some level experimental if you're going
yeah,
into
right,
bop and beat and hard bop
right,
and
right.
yeah. Oh my, this is so. This won't be in the book. What is the most interesting thing that has happened to you since the pandemic?
Well, yes, hard work, that you have to kind of reset your clock, what you can or cannot do it, because art world, and especially art performing world, was very much affected, and the quality of dancing dropped down. And our audience learn. I feel that it's my place now, with few leaders in the dance world, to bring audience back to appreciate what are the beauty of the classics, and yet to discover contemporary dance more, and a combination of it. So because during pandemic we had nothing, there was no performing. And when theaters were opened, that somehow dancers tried to collect what they had, and the audience started to appreciate, say, more tricks rather than artistry. And that's what I'm working on.
So do you watch those TV shows? Do you watch So You Think You Can Dance? Do you watch the what are the names of those things? Um, the reality series where people compete as sometimes as celebrities, sometimes. Do you ever watch any of those? Do you have any thoughts?
Well, at some point I watched. No, I don't, because it's about a competition, and it is about gimmicks and the tricks. And but just recently I watched Olympics figure skating, and it's very interesting because figure skating went into more artistry. Of course, we're doing the squads and God knows what. And while I believe dance went to try to get the gimmicks.
That's, oh, I'm just love talking to Valentina Kozlova. Just another moment or two with you, and reminding people one more time that they can buy your book, Behind the Curtain: The Truth, the Sacrifice, and the Price of Freedom. Which again, it'll be available in mid-March, either while you're watching this or maybe a week or later or something like that. And Amazon, you said it's going to be there. Is it? Where else is it available? Will be available?
I don't know yet. We just, yeah, we worked on edit. So now we're doing the graphics. So that was probably soon. I don't know where else it's going to be.
So let me ask you: do you have an all-time favorite choreographer?
I worked a lot with Margot Sappington, who she was the person who created O Calcutta.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
I never seen. I just recently actually got film of that, and I was like, oh my god, I could not believe what I've seen. But apparently, that when we met as a dancer and choreographer, there was a connection between us because she told me later that I was her muse because she was taking her choreography from my knowledge and education of dance, and she also challenged me in things that I never done it, so it worked very well. Other than that, I loved many choreographers. I danced Krenko, I danced Roland Petit, I loved Glenn Tetley. I worked with Elvin Ailey. Robbins was very interesting, of course, Balanchine. But personally, for me, Margot sort of fit me very well. And like in April, I'm going to dance a little piece for Audrey. She's doing some performance. And so I told Margot, I said, let's re-choreograph this. I'm not going to dance on point. It's like a comedy of some sort. It's more acting. But nevertheless, for me, it's like the most important. I'm missing, believe it or not, being backstage with darkness when you do warm up while dancers already on stage and you wait for your peers. I love that because then I feel I'm still there. I'm still a dancer, so to a certain degree.
Still a dancer and also a choreographer. What is, it's an idiotic question, but what is the most important thing that you try to convey to all the young, aspiring ballerinas and ballerinos who come to you?
There's a If there's a will, there's a power. There's everything is possible. You just have to put your mind into it. And almost every day I remind them when I give like something very difficult, and they're usually like nervous laugh. They're like laughing, and I said, "Look, it's really that simple." And I explained how to do it, and I said, "Please do it," and they do it. They do it right on the spot. So I said, "You see why you didn't believe into yourself? You always have to believe. Yeah, maybe it will not work exactly right now today, and maybe not tomorrow, but it you will achieve. So you have to believe in positiveness. Otherwise, how can you live in general?"
Well, I'm generally a very negative soul, but I'm incredibly positive and optimistic talking to this woman, Valentina Kozlova. Please, please, please go get her book, Behind the Curtain, The Truth of Sacrifice and the Price of Freedom. And by the way, where is that performance you're going to be giving? Is it in the United States? Where are you doing it?
Yes, it will be in New York City and San Jean. They have small stage. You probably will get more information from Audrey.
Yeah, great. Well, yes, I thank certainly Audrey Ross for putting this interview together. I wish you much more dance, much more joy, much more positive things. Valentina, a delight. And now I can say it, shalom and das vidanya.
Shalom and до свидания. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.